In today's video, we're going to be taking a brief look here into some potential upcoming snowstorms that we have popping up here on not only our European model, but also our GFS model. So there is some consistency here that we're seeing from the models in this potential snowfall event in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. There's actually multiple for the Northeast. So let's just take a look at it. We're in the final legs of winter time. Obviously, we're running out of time for any wintry activity to happen here in the winter of 2022 to 2023 period, really, because it's already February 18th. We have about 10 more days of February, and then maybe, the first half of March. Sometimes the full month of March can be wintry, but we're going to have to see what ends up happening here. We reach towards, we'll call this Tuesday. We see that there is more storminess picking up. Not only snowfall here in the west, northwest more particularly. We see a lot of these areas seeing snowfall, including the Cascades there, and then also the Northern Rockies. There is a bit of a more major storm system here, kind of over southeastern Canada, and this is causing some showery activity to take place across the southeast and portions of your mid-Atlantic regions of the United States there. As we continue things on, we see a more major storm developing over at Missouri here. This has a cold front and a warm front dynamic here. And usually this means that we can be looking towards potential severe weather underneath that low that's located right here. So we'd be watching everywhere I just circled in for potential severe weather. Not only that, we have a 977 millibar low pressure center here over Colorado. And we can see heavy snowfall here for a lot of these different states. Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota. All of these areas are dealing with some heavier snowfall. Let's keep this going, and we see what we end up getting is more mixed activity up here to the northeast, also the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. What we see is some pink layers in there indicating some ice or kind of mixed precipitation in there, and then to the north of there we see the darker blue, all the way from the northern plains through the Great Lakes and even into the northeast there with some of that heavier snowfall there. And the jet stream by this point is doing about like this. So we see a ridge taking place, a pretty major ridge actually taking place over the eastern United States. Very warm here on Thursday, the 23rd actually, and a very deep trough out west. And this has been obviously the theme all winter long. Now, as we just continue this on, what we see is things get a little bit quieter for just a brief moment there. And by the 25th, which will be a Saturday, we have a bit of a low up here, and in general, for a lot of the eastern United States, this looks to be a stormier weekend, as we have a lot of rainfall here across some of the Ohio Valley, back through the plains here, underlining it there, and then also some frozen precipitation up here for the northeast. Now, things really get interesting by the time we're taking a look at approximately the 27th, 28th time frame, the last 2 days here of February. We begin to see some wintry activity begin to be possible here throughout the mid-Atlantic portions of the nation, as there is some cold air diving down into this area. This isn't the coldest look I've seen all year, but definitely this is the most promising look at a snowstorm in these areas that we've seen. We see heavy snowfall taking place throughout DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, all those sorts of areas there just north of Richmond. Our low is located right over kind of southeast VA here, southeast VA, northeast North Carolina. These areas are seeing this low. And again, we've talked about it all winter long, but what we see is some damming here on the western end of things where some cold air is able to make its way in. And that's why the further west you go, the more snowfall we're seeing. And on the eastern end of the things, as you can see, things are doing this, and this is leading towards that rain snow line to be higher up on the eastern end. That is the look, really. That is as far into it as we get. So the total precipitation tells a pretty evident story. We see a lot of storms diving through the northwest into the Rockies here. We also see a lot of systems rising up into your Ohio Valley regions, through these southern, deeper South Plains areas, and into eventually the northeast in kind of the mid-Atlantic here. All those red areas are seeing pretty substantial amounts of precipitation over the next 10 days. As we take a look here at the total snowfall, as you can see, not only are we seeing, obviously, the Rockies, Cascades, Sierra Nevada, seeing gargantuan amounts of snowfall like we've seen all wintertime long, we're also seeing a lot of storms moving across these areas just like this. And again, on that northern end of the storm, we see pretty substantial amounts of snowfall there. So we see all these areas in here. And then last minute at the very end of the model run, we get a storm moving through just like this. and this leads towards some potential snowfall in this area here for the Mid-Atlantic. So we will be watching for all of these things. I want to walk us through the GFS model here as well, because we noted that this also has some similar storms. Again, we get the storm where we get mixed precipitation and then snowfall to the north. It's right around the 23rd. Again, extremely warm temperatures in the east here on Thursday the 23rd. Jet stream is doing about like this, so a pretty substantial day as far as heat is concerned, especially the further towards the east coast you go. Right there on Thursday the 23rd, going to be probably upper 70s for most areas there in the east, even lower 80s for some folks. And then extremely cold temperatures out west. As we just continue this on, we see, again, those kind of northeast snowstorms with some mixed precipitation. And then right around your 27th, 28th time frame, we do get this low. It's a little bit further south here on our GFS model. Usually the GFS model does show things a little bit further south than the Euro. We see a little bit of that cold, damming air to the west and the rising warm air in the east. But obviously the amount of snowfall we're seeing here on the GFS is quite minimal compared to your European model. So we don't know which one exactly will be true, but I do know right now that my confidence is fairly high in there being some sort of low pressure system in the area. Things could warm up and this could be purely a rainstorm, but the chances of that low being in place at least seems to be relatively high because we have both the GFS model and the European model in great agreement here that right around that 26th through 28th time frame, there should be a low here over North Carolina or Virginia, right in this area. We're watching this extremely closely because there is the potential for snowfall with this low, but again, it's mostly the low and the location we're confident in. It's the snowfall that's going to be a little bit harder to see happen eventually. Now, as we can see, we get more pretty similar storms on our GFS model, and what we end things out at here on March 6th, as you can see on this model run, is actually a ridge in the west, massive trough in the east. This would potentially be the coldest air of the year here. So this is pretty substantial stuff we're seeing right at the end here on this GFS model, and some rising warm air out west, which has been really, really hard to come by all wintertime long. So very, very interesting solution there. I do want to see here, because we see that this European ensemble model warms us up right around until we're taking a look, and this is that Thursday, by the way, right there. So we can see those far below or far above normal temperatures here, as you can see in these areas. That's exactly what I was talking about. But as we can see, we don't cool down until about the 28th there, just like the GFS and the European deterministic model showed. But it's this right here that's going to make snowfall possible, because we see the cold air spreading throughout all of these areas from Canada. Certainly a very cold look as we end the month and begin the month of March. And then we see things warm up around the 4th, 5th. We're not really seeing this massive trough like we saw in the GFS model, because this is right around when we would see that. So the GFS model showed this, and the European model is showing this, a lot of that, and more rising warm air from the Gulf into the east here as we begin the month of March. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video.